Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining in on the Edmonton Business Show. Today, I will be interviewing Eddie Castillo. He is a realtor here in Edmonton. And I actually found him and he found me on Instagram. And I'd like to introduce you to him. I think he's a really positive guy. He's very dedicated from what I see, the way he presents himself on his Instagram page. So Eddie, tell me a bit about yourself. Where are you from and why did you decide to become a realtor?
Yeah, hey Makita, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I've been a realtor since about 2014,
Okay.
since about the end of 2014. That's when I got my real estate license. And before then, I was working for builders, basically selling new houses out of like a show home. I started that in about 2012. So, overall, I've been in the real estate business about 8 years.
Okay, that's great. And was there anything in particular that attracted you to the industry? Did you have a love for houses when you were a younger child?
I've always wanted to be in real estate. I think I was just always scared. I always had fear about getting into the market. I always saw kind of fierce competition. I always knew there was a lot of realtors out there and I didn't know how I could add value. And I didn't really believe in myself, to be honest. I didn't believe in myself that I could be successful at that business. And, we go through life and you go to school and you get your jobs and I basically ended up in sales. I've kind of been in sales my whole life, and I ended up selling basically newspapers. I was basically helping a large corporation that owned a bunch of newspapers in Canada, including papers like the Edmonton Journal and the Calgary Herald. And I was basically their sales and marketing guy, and I would help them boost their readership levels, so they could charge more for advertising. And I did that for a number of years, and I had a partner, and we did well in that business for a number of years. But as we all know, the newspaper business is kind of a dying business. I think most people get their news online or from some sort of digital source. So and then of course what happened to us at that time was the US economy had collapsed. I don't know if you guys recall back in 2007, the US economy basically collapsed, and it took the global markets basically along with it, and unfortunately we were one of those casualties. Being in the newspaper business, and the big corporation that we worked for was heavily affected by the downturn in the US economy. And that's when I really started thinking about a different line of work. And as they say, the rest is history. So
Right. And so working in that kind of industry, I'm assuming you started to build an understanding of the Edmonton mindset, what they wanted in real estate or just consumerism altogether. Do you think that helped you with your career right now?
For sure, for sure. I mean, I've always kind of been in sales. I've always been a people person. I've never been scared to, talk to people, talk to strangers. And so I think for sure that helped me, with selling and putting yourself out there and meeting new people. For sure, I think that helped me quite a bit. Yeah.
That's great. And when did you get started as a realtor?
So I got licensed in around the end of 2014. And then, so that's kind of when, I started, practicing, residential real estate. And, it's really a tough business. It really is. I know that I've heard a lot of people in my networks that aren't realtors. They kind of think that it's easy to be a realtor and, it's all fun and games and money. But the fact is that it's not that way at all. It's actually a very challenging business. It's a very difficult business to break into. It's pretty easy to go and take the courses, and get your license. That's probably one of the easier parts about the whole process. But the hard part is really getting clients. And getting clients to trust you, because it is such a large transaction, and sometimes they can be very complex transactions, and there's a lot at stake. And so, especially in the beginning when you're kind of a new realtor, nobody really wants to deal with you because, you're the new guy on the block and you don't really know what you're doing and you haven't run into all the different kinds of scenarios that can arise during a purchase or sale of real property. So it's really, really hard, and meanwhile, you have fixed costs. So every month that goes by, you have people you have to pay professional associations that you're a part of. You have to pay your office rent. So you have pretty big expenses as well. So it's really not an easy business to get into, to
Mhm.
kind of penetrate and to have success at. Having said that, I mean, it can be really rewarding. It can be a great business. I recommend it to people whenever people are kind of, in between careers. I always make them think about real estate anyway. I don't paint, the rosiest of pictures because, like I just mentioned, it's not the easiest business. But if your heart is in the right place and your true intentions are to actually help people and, not to rush people, but to help them and guide them and educate them and inform them, if that's kind of your attitude, then, I think you can do well in any business. Furthermore, I think, especially these days, and I don't know if you kind of noticed this, Makita, but it's just so hard to, I don't know if people's work ethic is kind of on a downward trend, or I'm not sure what it is, but like for example, we're trying to get our backyard landscaped, and it's just so hard to get somebody to give me a quote. Like, it's so hard to believe, but first of all, it's so hard to get somebody to show up at my house, and nothing against landscapers, because we renovated a bathroom a few months ago, and it was the same thing. It's hard to even get somebody to show up at your house. And then when they do show up, they won't give you a quote. It's just really bizarre. And so I think in any business, I think if you're prepared to give excellent service and take care of people and actually care about them, I think that, there's a space for you in any industry, really.
I absolutely agree. It's funny that you mentioned that. I'm going to be putting out 5 branding mistakes that I've been noticing. And it's true. It's like a video I put out a couple of weeks ago. I've been noticing there's a bit of a downturn of content putting out there, not even just social media, but just it kind of went down as soon as COVID-19 hit. And I'm not exactly sure if it's because people are feeling down and out or they're nervous, but this is the time to level up your customer service, level up your content, and take it in a new direction. So I agree. Um,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, like you say, now we have so much time on our hands that, you should be trying to, you know, up your game and master, your craft in any way that you can. I think we have to use this time as efficiently as we can, and like you say, content is so important. I think a lot of people have it backwards. And I think, we've had a few conversations, Makita, and I know that you mentioned this to me and kind of helping me, with my social media strategy is, you almost have to give before you get,
that's
you
right.
have to, you have to show value. You can't just, put an ad out there and say, hey, call me when you need to buy or sell. Call me. I'm your guy. I'm the best. No, I mean, it's more so like giving information, 5 tips to get your house ready for sale, or a great season to buy or a great season to sell. What does a buyer's market mean? Just, I think if you give people value and give them information, helpful information, then I think, then they say, okay, well, this guy, helped me out. Maybe I'll call him, when I'm ready to buy or sell a house. Of course, there's so much things you have to do in between in terms of following up and keeping yourself at the top of their minds. But I think at the end of the day, you have to bring the value first. I really do agree with you, Makita. I think you taught me that. So.
Absolutely. And as far as your audience is concerned, are you more focused right now on residential investors or commercial property? What does your audience look like?
Yeah, so in the real estate business, there's 3 types of licenses that you can have for the most part. So the 3 licenses are residential, commercial, and rural. So, rural is like out of town farms where you have things like septic tanks and You may or may not have water coming from the city or county closest to you. So there's all kinds of different uh, issues at play with rural. But yeah, so residential, commercial, and rural. And when I first started out, I thought, heck, I'm going to do all three of them. I just want to try to get any kind of business that I can. And then I kind of realized that that wasn't the best approach. So right now I only practice residential. I let my commercial license go. I let that kind of expire. And then I still have a rural license, but I don't practice rural. If I get somebody that wants to buy or sell a farm, I just refer them to somebody that is a total expert in rural properties. That's all they do. They help people buy and sell rural properties every single day. And so that's really the person that will be able to best serve, that client looking to buy or sell in the rural. So for me, I basically specialize in residential. I only buy or sell residential properties. I have a big network that I can refer people to if they are looking to purchase commercial or rural properties. But for me, it's only about residential. And, certainly I can help anybody buy or sell in any price point in terms of residential. But you know what, in terms of, going back to kind of adding value, and, when I first started in the business, I thought, how can I do that? How can I add value? And so I've kind of tried to focus on the first time home buyer market, because I just thought to myself, this is the first time they're going through this. And so they're probably really going to need some help. And so I kind of figured, well, let me see if I can try to position myself where I'm visible to these people that are looking to buy their home for the first time. And so that's kind of my focus, I guess you could say. But certainly I can help anybody buy or sell in any price point in Edmonton.
I like the fact that you said that if somebody is interested in agricultural, residential, you don't take it. And I think it's great that you refer people to somebody who is 100% involved in that. It shows your loyalty, it shows your ethics and morality, because there are a lot of people out there that will just they'll do a half quality job and then wonder why the person doesn't refer them to other people or use them in the long term. So that's great that you practice that. And right now, what have you been up to with the quarantine? Are you taking courses? Are you going out with prospects? How's it looking for you right now?
Yeah, it's it's just interesting times we're living in, it's crazy. I don't think any of us have ever really lived through anything like this. So for me, in terms of work, in terms of real estate, everything basically hit pause for probably, 5 or 6 weeks. I would say, I don't know exactly when. I would probably say, around the end of February, the beginning of March is when, the government started officially locking down cities and economies and stores and everything. And so I think that's when the real fear kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, people were like, holy, I can't even go to work. So this is serious. This is a big deal. And so I think that's when the fear really hit everybody, including myself. And so that's when I think the people that were looking at buying a house hit pause. They basically pressed the pause button. They said, I don't want to go into a stranger's home. I don't know if they have COVID-19. Also, people might be thinking, well, how long is this going to last? What's going to happen afterwards? Is our house prices going to go down drastically? What's going to happen? How long is this going to last? Am I going to be employed in 2 weeks from now? Right? So I think there's so many questions going on in people's minds. And of course, nobody knows the answers. There's so much uncertainty. And so I think a lot of people pushed the pause button that were, shopping for homes. And then also the people that were thinking of listing their homes and putting it on the market also pressed pause, because they don't know who's coming into their home, right? Because when you basically are buying a house, you have to book a 1 hour time slot to go into the home and view the home. And during that time, the sellers leave the house. So you can, look at the home in peace, I guess, shall we say, for lack of a better term. And so people that were thinking of listing their properties, were changing their minds because they don't want to leave their property for an hour. They don't know who's coming in. Do they have COVID? Have they just come back from a trip from the US or somewhere else in the world? And so it was kind of like everybody hit pause. The buyers hit pause, the sellers hit pause. So that's kind of what happened, I find, for about 5 or 6 weeks. Nobody was doing nothing. And then, interestingly enough, I got a call from a buyer of mine, and he said, "You know what, Eddie, I'm not scared anymore." He said, I want to continue my search. I want to buy a house." And so that's when I kind of woke up as well. I said, well, if he's not scared, why am I scared? I think, at the end of the day, we have to be super cautious. We have to put hand sanitizer on our hands before entering the home. And, the listing agent or the sellers try to leave all the doors open inside the house and try to leave all the lights on. So we don't have to touch many things when we're in the home, and constantly hand sanitizing. I have masks if my clients want, I have gloves. But, beyond that, I mean, life doesn't stop. So when my buyer called me and said, "You know what, Eddie, I'm not scared. I just want to keep shopping," that kind of woke me up as well. And that kind of started my phone to ring again. My phone started ringing after that. And so I kind of so I almost feel like, the lockdown started, everybody was really scared, for a month or more. And then I think, people started getting tired of being scared. And, they realized that, the significance of this whole pandemic, it's no joke. It's not like we can resume business as usual. That's not, at all what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that, we have to try to find a new normal, and we have to try to find a way to still operate, our businesses. And real estate's one of those essential things where, if you sold your house before the pandemic hit and you only have 30 days to get out of your house and buy a new house, well, you don't have much of a choice. I mean, you have to buy a house. I mean, you could go and look for a short-term rental, but then you're going to run into the same kind of issues. You're going to be going into a foreign property, and so there's always going to be risks with everything. I guess you could rent short-term, and any kind of place. You wouldn't have to be too picky on the rental, I guess. And then once this blows over, I guess you could go back to shopping for a house. But and I'm sure a lot of people did do that. But life goes on, and we just have to be super careful. Like I said, I've got gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, and so that's kind of when, for me, business started to pick up again. And I think a big contributor to that as well was the Premier of Saskatchewan announcing that they were going to reopen the economy gradually, and the US were also kind of on the same track of talking about how to reopen the economy gradually. And so I think that was light at the end of the tunnel for us, right? For people, for me, for you, for everybody, because our prime minister every day was on TV, and he would tell us great statistics, but he wouldn't give us light at the end of the tunnel. He wouldn't say, well, you know what, 4 months maximum, and then you guys will be able to go back to work and your kids will be able to go back to school. There was nothing like that. There was no talk about anything. All there was talk about was negative things, deaths and more infection rates. But there was no talk about, how do we get out of this? How do we position ourselves to be able to get out of this? And so I think when Saskatchewan started announcing reopening, and Ontario, and then the US, and so I think that also contributed to people, saying to themselves, okay, this is not the end of the world. We are going to have to get back to normal, at some point. So, let's try to reopen as soon as we can, of course, being as careful as we can. So yeah, I mean, sorry for the long-winded answer, but, I think my business really hit zero, basically a complete pause for, 4 to 6 weeks. And then it's kind of slowly, gradually starting to open again. So that's good news.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I'm glad that that person called you, and it was like a light at the end of the tunnel, as you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice right now to first home buyers that will watch this video? And do you have any advice on, I wouldn't say a forecast, but how to maybe help them kind of get through this time and their decision-making process?
Yeah, I think again, there's just so much uncertainty. So when a first-time home buyer is thinking to himself and going, well, should I buy now or should I wait until the pandemic is over? Maybe prices will go down.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that. I wish I did. Most of the time when people ask me anything related to residential real estate, I have an answer. So it feels really strange to not have an answer at this time, but I don't think anybody does. And I think, if somebody's giving you, answers with complete conviction, you really have to question their honesty, because some of the smartest people on earth don't really know what's going to happen, particularly these financial guys, like these economists that have studied many years about these types of things, and they don't know. So what I would say to a first time home buyer now is that, are they in a rush to buy? What is the need to buy now? Maybe maybe they have a really bad situation in the rental that they're in, or maybe it's something to do with school, or maybe it's something to do with parents. So if you need to buy now, buy now. I mean, the world is not ending. Canada is probably one of the most secure countries in the world. I don't think that we'll ever have complete chaos in our streets and a meltdown of our financial system. In fact, in 2007, when the U.S. economy crashed and they had a financial meltdown, we did not.
That's
We
right.
did not. Our housing market did make a correction because the prices were just going up and up and up and up, and it was not sustainable. And so our housing prices did correct themselves at that time in 06 when the US economy collapsed, but our financial system did not collapse. Our banks were resilient. Our financial systems remained intact. And so, to a first-time home buyer now, I would just say, if you want to buy, just buy. If the prices go down 1% this year, I mean, big deal. I mean, if you're not looking to sell in a year, then it won't affect you, right? At the end of the day, I mean, real estate will always go up in the long term, always, no matter what. It's just like the cost of living, just like inflation, right? I mean, anything, a chocolate bar, 20 years ago costed, 50 cents. Now they're $1.50. So it's, with inflation, everything will always go up. People will always need a place to live. And so, if the first time home buyer wants to buy now, then I would recommend he buy now. At the end of the day, whatever makes that person happy is what I'm going to recommend. And if somebody is scared to buy now because they think that prices are going to drop a lot after the pandemic, then I would also say, then wait. In that case, I would just recommend that they wait. So, at the end of the day, whatever makes the person feel comfortable is what I would recommend. We all have different needs and wants. So based on that person's needs and wants is how I would advise them. But in terms of, hard data to tell them, prices are going to go up this much, or prices are going to go down this much, or don't worry, or you should worry a lot, I'm really not going to go there, because I don't want to mislead anybody. I don't want to give anybody bad information. I don't want to be guessing. And so, unfortunately, I don't have those hard answers, to those questions. But at the end of the day, I would just do whatever the client needs, needs and wants. So, if they want to buy now, I would certainly help them. And like I said, we live in an amazing country. So, prices might drop a percent next year, but I mean, you're not going to have the whole system collapse here in Canada and be in complete chaos and have to worry about, your property being taken over by, I mean, you know, Canada is Canada. I mean, we're pretty much as safe as they come, I think.
Right. That's great. And again, it goes back to the testimony of your genuine personality, and that you don't want to lead anybody down the wrong path. In the past, I've worked with realtors that kind of give a false narrative, and I can feel that they just wanted to close the deal. So I think it's great that you project that. And before we end, I just have two more things. Uh, which cities in Edmonton do you focus on? Are you interested in St. Albert, Sherwood Park? Like, what are your favorite regions to focus on right now?
You know, I'll do anything within greater Edmonton area. So there's, you know, about 10 communities that surround Edmonton, like you said, St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Leduc, Nisku, Beaumont, Morinville, Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Fort Saskatchewan. So any of those communities, I'm fine. I know them like the back of my hand. I've been there. I know them very, very well. But anything outside of that, I refer out. Just because, you know, like I had a client a few months ago, and they wanted to sell a property outside of Edmonton near one of the lakes that we have. And I referred it out because I'm not an expert on Pigeon Lake. I mean, I know it's very close. It's about an hour away, but I'm not an expert on that area, and so I won't deal with that. But anything within Edmonton's greater area, like those 10 communities surrounding Edmonton, and then of course anything within Edmonton, I'm glad to help anybody with.
That's great. And before we end our show, do you have any social media handles, a website that you want to share, an email, a phone number, anything at all?
Yeah. So my cell number is 587-987-8560. And my email address is Eddie, so that's EDDIE Castillo, CASTILLO at century21.ca, because that's the company that I'm with, is Century 21. And then I do have a website, Edmonton firsttimehomebuyers.ca, or YEG firsttimehomebuyers.ca. And then I'm trying to get better with the social media. And so on Facebook, I'm Eddie Castillo Real Estate is my business page. On Instagram, it's castillo.real.estate. And following some of your guidance, Makita, I'm just now kind of getting into the Twitter and LinkedIn. So maybe there'll be more to come with that. If I'm ever invited back, maybe I'll have some more social media details to give you.
Absolutely. I will definitely want to interview you again. I'm thinking after this whole COVID-19 thing comes in, unless you wanted to schedule another one, maybe in another month or so from now, I'm open to having you again, share some more content, who knows? So
yeah, let's keep in touch for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, Eddie Castillo. It's a Sunday. I'm sure you'd rather be with your wife and kids right now. I will share this on my Instagram, LinkedIn, my YouTube, my Spotify. I'll put maybe about 2 minutes on Twitter, and I'll tag you. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. And for everybody watching, thank you for tuning in on the Edmonton Business Show. I'll have another guest for you soon. I won't let you know that, just a surprise. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye, Eddie.
Thank you. See
You're
you.
welcome. Have a great day.
You too.